Thanks for joining. I'm Ryan Core with Lightspeed. I have my co-host Jenna Draper, former Lightspeed director of our analytics product, now advisor, consultant, founder of Catch On, our analytics solution. Welcome to our Scope Compliance Made Easy webinar today. Uh, if you've met Jenna and I in the past, we refer to each other as Shaq and Kobe. Jenna is about 5'3" in heels, and I'm 6'6", so we're quite the contrast visually when you see us together. So thank you for joining. Most of the folks that have joined the call are existing Lightspeed clients, and I'd like to thank you for that partnership and the ability to jointly protect kids, as that's our mission here at Lightspeed. As you can see, our beautiful background, we've been around for 25 years of keeping students safe, and that's our mantra in what we thrive to do here. And so with that, we wanted to welcome everyone, give people a chance to join the session. We're going to send out a quick poll just to get a grasp on what folks' expertise is around this air of mystique that we've seen land on our front porch, known as House Bill 18 and the Scope Act. And I know there's a bunch of questions around it, and people are hungry to understand what it means to the districts. And we're learning as well. So that's the part of the goal of this is to educate, what we can do to accomplish the requirements that are outlined in the bill, and then how we can get the house in order so that when things happen, perhaps down the line, driven from either a TEA or someone of the likes enforcing this, that the house is in order and we check the boxes. And so, again, I'm seeing some of the polls come in somewhat familiar, next to nothing, what Scope Act, right? And so let's just get a quick recap on what Scope Act is. And so last year, we did not write this, just full stop statement, and we have a little bit of housekeeping on this side of the house. So I need to state that the products that we're going to show you are fully deployed and live. There's anything that we do mention could come up in development. We're open to suggestions. If you've been a Lightspeed partner, you understand that that's one of the great values of partnering with us. We listen to our clients. We only sell to K-12. And with that, we see a breadth of suggestions across the country and globally on issues that impact your day-to-day business. And so with that, we have our DAC sessions, our District Advisory Council sessions. We have features in the tools that allow you to submit suggestions on different feature requests. If you worked with Jenna and I, we've been all ears on hearing how we can improve the solutions. And so we have a gang of features being released over the summer as we encroach on back to school in our core products. And when we talk about that, we look at, the core products. When I look at them, are essentially Filter is what we built the business off of. That's 25 years in existence. And then everything else has kind of happened from a grassroots perspective. And so the next solution you look at is our classroom management tool, the ability to have the administrators or teachers control what the kids see on their screen. So think of it as a filter plus down to a granular level in the classroom, being able to share screens, quickly drop kids into a virtual classroom, and control and filter down to what your curriculum drives. The next product moving down the line would be our alert solution. That is what goes head to head in the market with the likes of what GoGuardian offers from Beacon. Some of our other competitors in that space are Gaggle. And we feel we've made leaps and bounds with that solution and can go head to head with anyone in that space today. That's a key component that we'll touch on later in this webinar that drives into the Scope Act. And of course, our digital insight solution, our analytics solution, which is what Jenna developed on the back of a napkin back in 2016. And we've taken it and grown that solution, added digital equity. In essentially what that does, and I don't want to steal Jenna's thunder, it gets the house in order, right? And so think of it as an asset management tool from a tangible side that you would do on your hardware piece of the business. It translates over into this unknown or untangible side of the business, that's software that's living and breathing in your enterprise that you don't know about, right? And so we saw an influx of that happen during COVID, where teachers were simply adding applications into their curriculum and it's unbeknownst to IT what's out there. And so essentially we have the visibility at a granular level to see what's on each device and how long those applications are being used. And then you talk about plus on that side of it, you understand that, okay, the kids are using this for, let's say a fifth grade math application. You could see down to the time spent on campus, off campus, time in the application, down to the user level. And so that's the portfolio of solutions that we have to offer. And our MDM's tool as well, which is going through a revamp right now. We'll launch that revamp over the summer. So mobile device management goes head to head with the likes of Mosel Jamf at a fraction of the cost. And so we'll drive into this. I see that, most of the poll questions have come back. Everybody's kind of in this purgatory state of understanding what House Bill 18 is and the SCOPE Act. And we'll go ahead and kick it off over to Jen and dive a little deeper into it.
Hey guys, I'm Jenna Draper. Most of you probably know me. So yes, I founded Catch On, and now it's Lightspeed Digital Insight. And if you don't know the background a little bit, this product has really gone through a number of different stages, really riding the waves of data privacy and how this has evolved across the country since 2016. And then put into that mix, we had this global pandemic that affected our lives. It still affects our lives. And so, data privacy really started kicking off in about 2018 with New York. The very first laws, them and California, were really aimed around helping parents have visibility into what the district was approving for students to use. And so the genesis behind this is that all of the different states kind of caught on to what New York and California were doing. And you're starting to see different flavors of these. Now there are over 40 states that have their own specific student data privacy laws, but all of these laws, similar to SCOPE, all have this function in them to help provide transparency to parents. Now, what really occurred to help kind of drive towards SCOPE Act and why Texas went down this road is not only were we looking at all these different states and what other states were doing, but we're also looking at the inadequacies that exist in the current laws. So COPPA was created back in the 90s. Oh my gosh, I was in school during then. I'll date myself a little bit. But then they redid COPPA with a 2.0 in 2021, right at the end of COVID. But it still only provided protections to students who were 16 and over. But it put a lot of onus on students and the teenagers to make good decisions. And we all know that, well, that's not always the best way to handle things. And parents don't really love that approach of giving their students the ability to make those kinds of decisions of where their data is going and who has access to their PII. So what Texas aimed to do with the SCOPE Act is to raise that limit of what a minor is to 18, following what Utah has done, what Florida has done, really putting the parents as the center of what students are being able to use, those minor students, where their data is going, who has access to their data, what tools their students are using, and then really helping protect students online to make sure that they're not accessing harmful content. But really the point behind this and what's really fascinating about this law and how it's come about is at the end of COVID, I imagine you guys could probably all admit to this. I did this manifesto research project at the end of last year. And something that I kept finding with all the districts I talked to about 24 school districts across the country, most of which were Lightspeed partners in some form or fashion. And what they shared with me was this consensus that there's a distrust in education today. After COVID, after the 2 years of just living through that misery and all the apps that went rampant and all just trying to figure out our way around things, there's so much more technology than we could have ever imagined. And we were using technology just to survive. Well, now it's time to clean that up. And so SCOPE Act is really aiming to help bring transparency between school districts and parents so that trust can be forged again. And we'll talk to you about how you can easily do that. But that's what makes me really excited about the SCOPE Act. Is to really mend those bridges and that trust between parents and districts that kind of has gone by the wayside since COVID. So we've talked to lots of districts about their challenges, and they're like, well, that's great, Jenna. We understand that we need to be doing these things, but we don't even know what's being used. We don't know what free applications are out there and like how to get our hands around where students' data is going. This all sounds like really time-consuming efforts. We've got surveys and we've got spreadsheets and this data lives in all these places. But this is all just kind of another law, another way that the government's telling us to do something without actually giving us money or resources to do it. Ryan, do you want to take on?
Absolutely. So thank you, Jenna. So when we look at compliance and what's called out in the House bill, it's weighed heavily in a couple different sections and paragraphs around the ability to one, provide minors with the data protections, and then having minors access harmful content, and then giving the parents a tool for after hours and in controlling what the kids see after hours. If you're familiar with our solutions and you've used our filter product, you know that there's the ability to whittle down after hours for what kids can grab access to. So if you want to put a full stop on, say, Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram, you can get down into a granular control level and either turn it completely off or tune it down to where they can't comment in sections and only have read writes to certain things. And so that's the value of the filter solution. And then you have a gratuitous tool called Parent Portal, which is included with our filter solution that gives the parents access to what the kids can see after hours. If they want to turn it off during certain times, they can say, okay, school-owned device, we can control it, right? And so that again complies and checks the box for the requirements that are called out in the Scope Act. One of the other things that's called out is the data collection piece of this, right? And so we've seen a ton of districts in Texas over the past 9 to 12 months move to the digital insight platform. And the why behind it and kind of what we want to accomplish is twofold. One, looking at, let's get our house in order. The way that people are managing their applications today are across the board, from an Excel spreadsheet to a Google Doc to a file cabinet. There's multiple places, Dropboxes, right? That data is stored around one, the DPAs and all the things that come with the SaaS agreement, right? End user license agreement, DPAs, when the renewal is, your existing contract and who that was purchased from, and the renewal timeframe. In the effort to clean this up and again get the house in order, that's the first part of it. So I talked about two folds. The second fold is then being able to control, and this spurs from Governor Abbott's initiative to get TikTok off of all devices, right? And so the idea of these third-party applications scraping the kids' PII and turning around and selling it to third parties. We've seen application providers change their EULAs on average of 3 times a year, unbeknownst to the end user. And so in our digital insight solution, if you're using it now, you understand that we have the ability to use AI and review what those changes are. And you turn around and you think about the time it would take from a legalese perspective to review these applications. That's a huge value add and a call out where the red line changes are. That's part one of the twofold. Part two of the twofold is being able, and what's called out in the House Bill 18, and this is what separates us from our competitors, is the ability to report out at any given time what applications have been reviewed, vetted, and approved by the district and are in your curriculum, and then report that out to the parents. That's one of the linchpins that's called out, or if you look at it, the cornerstones of the House bill. That's what it was hinged on, and being able to report out to the parents, hey, these are the applications we're using on a day-to-day basis in our curriculum, down to a grade level or school level, and report that out and say that, you know what, my Jane or Johnny in grade 3 at XYZ elementary school, this is what they're using. These are vetted apps. We have third-party providers showing that, via One EdTech and SDPC, various third-party reviewers saying, look, this is okay to use in your curriculum. These applications are not selling the child's data. that's the spirit of what is behind House Bill 18, part one of it. The other part, again, when we get into kind of identifying self-harm, peer harm, bullying, illicit drug references, that piece of it is addressed in our alert solution, in that ability that we're on the kids' devices at an agent level. And so we see everything down to a keystroke level, whether they delete it or not, in saying, okay, this is what's going on in the enterprise. And we then send that information over to our in-house Lightspeed employee safety and security analysts, and they review the sentiment of that threat and notify the district real time. And so again, being able to control those couple few aspects of it satisfy the requirements. Going back and kind of providing a recap, when you look at the House bill and it reads through, and controlling what the kids have access to down to a social media level, giving parents the ability to control that on campus, off campus, that's in parent portal. Then you look at the data being sprayed in approved applications in the curriculum. We can report that out in our digital insight solution. And then again, being able to notify around behavioral issues, whether it's self-harm, peer harm, bullying, violence, anything along those lines, explicit images, illicit drug use, human trafficking. We can identify those in real time and notify the district. I know that we've had a large uptick in folks that are pressed on budget this year, and they have an existing solution. They're coming over to our side of the fence and saying, hey, can you help us? And we're more than happy to do that. When you look at, we just switched slides here. So, the preventing access to the harmful content, this is, again, our alert with human review solution. We just released an additional feature, gratuitous, if you're using the human review feature, of tip line, right? So see something, say something. I know that that's part of behavioral health and student safety. In giving a QR code out to the district where the kids can then log in anonymous tips. Our safety and security analysts weigh the sentiment of those threats, can try to pinpoint it back to what's going on that they're seeing in alerts, and then contact the district on those notifications. Let's push through this here. We discussed how the parents are empowered with off-campus ability to use our parent portal. We did a refresh on this last fall. If you're an existing Filter client, additional features will be added, coming up on the back to school timeframe with parent portal. And again, this is one of the key components that's called out in House Bill 18. And this is gratuitous offer from Lightspeed, and how we're trying to work to satisfy all these needs under one vendor, one scope, one window pane to satisfy the Scope Act. When you look at the controls on social media, this is another thing that jumps out, and it's a huge differentiator in the marketplace when we look at our Filter product, is the ability to control down to the comment features visibility layer on YouTube. And it's kind of like a district policy on whether you allow YouTube, which most districts do at an educational level, and then at the higher grade levels being able to have full-blown access to it. You still don't want kids in YouTube all day long. We have a feature called Smart Play. It's patented, and it gives us the ability to whittle down that access to YouTube. Same goes with social media, read-only capabilities, and again, on-campus, off-campus access in timing of that helps satisfy that bill within the Filter product. Let me see here. The after hours, we discussed this on being able to put restrictions and lockouts. Being able to have the teachers control the kids' visibility in the classroom is something that we can help with regards to our classroom management solution. Seeing, okay, this is the curriculum for this class period. These are the 5 sites that we're going to allow access to, and that's it. After class period, the kid drops, rolls into another classroom, picks up with what the next teacher's curriculum is. The ability to drag and drop kids into that classroom, that was completely overhauled last summer. If you're using the solution, you understand the simplicity of it. And that's the goal behind that solution, is make it easy for the teachers to use it and continue learning with PD in readily available. When we look at this spread, at this deck here, This gets into, on the left-hand side, you're going to see what the Scope Act requirements call out. You're going to see that what our filter does to help meet those requirements. And then you see, the next solution being alert, we discussed, and that kind of checks the box with notifications to administration on welfare threats. And the last one being digital insight. You can see that's heavy in satisfying the requirements. And Jenna went through that, those capabilities. As we like to say, and this is a familiar, as we're coming up into political temperature here, I'm sure everybody has seen the ads on television, but it does truly take a village to protect, a child in the education system. And, that spans across all aspects of the business in K-12, down, from the teacher level to the administration level to the safety level. It takes everyone, including us as a vendor. That, again, coming back to our mission and what we've done very well for 25 years, protecting 6,000 school districts globally, 28 million kids on a daily basis are protected by Lightspeed. Being able to use one vendor to help protect the kids and move out with, also satisfying these requirements in House Bill is what we're thriving for. So getting back to, covering the different solutions we talked about, the filter, alert, digital insight, classroom, mobile device management. Most people on this call are an existing Lightspeed client. You understand the value of the filter and parent portal. Alert is probably the least used from our client base, and that's simply because people during COVID, customers had to move to a solution quickly as kids were off campus, and we were playing a little bit of catch up at that time with our development of our solution. We had the data internally, and that's a key takeaway is that we've been doing this for 25 years. We've have the data to give the visibility as a platform on what the kids are doing. And you see, as we grow as a company, the interoperability between the products complementing each other, right? And so an example of that is if you are a filter client and you're using Alert, you get an expanded view of what the kids are looking at from a website perspective. So you see all of those hits. The same translates over to digital insight. As you see, we now have a feature in classroom management that the teacher can promote an application that they're using over to the app approval process in digital insight. So it goes through the vetting process. So again, quick recap, teachers using a solution in the classroom, being able to submit it in classroom, kicks over to digital insight. Digital insight then takes it through the vetting process that you have set up as a workflow. That feature is being rolled out. That's live today. The workflow feature in digital insight for those digital insight clients on the line that are probably excited to see, that feature is being worked on and rolled out over the summer. And also the ability to block things that we identify in digital insight, and you want to then take it over to that application. So again, you see where we're going as a vendor in combining the interoperability and complementing features. Full stop statement, you don't need to use one to access the others. All of the solutions below in this slide here are independent and can be used without one another. So with that, we're wrapping up on our, we try to keep this short and sweet. I know that we had an hour dialed in. We're learning as you are with regards to this impact of House Bill 18. I've talked to a lot of CIOs across the state. Again, you probably are well aware that there's an air of mystique on the enforcement. I know that, in other states, what we've seen, like in Colorado, for instance, they had a similar House bill. And what that has spurred into now is the likes of a fine of $3,500 per incident to the school district. Now, I don't know if the Attorney General's office is going to roll something out like that. And I think the key takeaway here is that we don't know who's going to enforce this act, whether it be the Attorney General's office and they kick it over to TEA and TEA decides to start auditing districts. We don't know that, and we're learning that as well. So the takeaway, and I think Jenna and I both talked about this at length, is that you want to get the house in order. In the value of doing that and getting ahead of it is what we're trying to accomplish with helping clients out. if anyone is interested in talking to us further, we're open to digging deeper into specific products, providing a real-time demo. Typically, we see moving into a POC, and we have different creative ways, especially for existing clients, to do things seamlessly to get ready for back to school, whether that's crossing over fiscal years. I know that most people are in budget holds right now as we close out the fiscal year and kind of span over to the next fiscal year. And so, in order to get things up and running for next school year, we can do things like letter of intents and different creative things to help you get the house in order. Jenna, anything else in closing that you'd like to add or?
No, I think you covered it all, Ryan. That would be the thing I would impress the most on everyone is creating that sense of transparency that I mentioned earlier is really important. Getting your house in order, being able to show things, because what we don't know is where this bill will evolve in the next year or 2 years. And what I have seen in like Florida, for example, there's a very prominent school district that we had worked with for a long time, and Florida's House Bill 7069 evolved into SOPIPA. And if you want to Google that, you can. You can check me on that. But House Bill 7069 evolved into SOPIPA, and it drastically changed things. And so for the districts who had not gotten their house in order with House Bill 7069, a couple years later when SOPIPA came out, they were like, oh my gosh, scrambling. And the worst thing in the world that can happen is, a parent comes around and says, how are you protecting my student? What are you doing? And for that school district who had their house in order, they said, hey, here's our approved app list. Here's how we're vetting these applications. Here's the measures that we're taking. And that sense of transparency kind of got the parents to kind of calm down and say, oh, okay, we're good. So, it puts everyone at ease, just being able to really have that level of transparency to your community so that they know that the district's doing everything that they can. And I believe that the Lightspeed system tools are absolutely the best in the market. When we were acquired, Catch Home was acquired by Lightspeed. A big reason why I was so thrilled about that acquisition was Lightspeed is very well poised with the best technology and the best team to really partner with districts and continue to evolve and keep up with these kinds of bills and these challenges that you have, to make sure that we can make your life as simple and seamless as possible, so that these things that kind of land on your desk, they don't need to take up additional resources and time that you just don't have.
Yeah, sure. Aaron, Jenna, I'm reading Aaron submitting.
That's okay.
Do we want to address some of the questions in the chat here? I'm going through. I see Jeremy asked a question around Lightspeed Alert. And the question is, if we're using Lightspeed Alert to be in compliance with HB 18's reporting crimes, do we need to enable all categories to be in compliance or specific ones? If you look at the House bill, Jeremy, and you see what they call out, I mean, it covers the breadth of bullying, self-harm, peer harm, violence, explicit images, illicit drug references. And so the answer, and again, I'm not the deciding de facto who's going to enforce this, but again, in the spirit of getting the house in order, we would recommend as a best practice to enable all the categories for compliance. Andrew asked, yeah, okay, go ahead, Jenna.
Hey, Andrew. Okay, so according to how the House Bill 18 is written, yes, there's going to need to be consent for minors. And that's why I think that if you can create that approved app list and allow parents to really identify what the district is saying is okay, then you're going to have parents who can more easily have objections to very specific tools versus them just coming out of the woodworks and saying, I don't want my kid using any of these tools. In the bill specifically, another question that came through pre-submitted was, can you put that in the in user license agreements and kind of the end of beginning of the year agreements that parents sign? No, they need to opt into each specific app, or actually more like consent to not use a particular app, but they can do that through email. We are not lawyers, so I don't want to misconstrue any of what the House bill intends. I would definitely consult a lawyer there, but that's definitely become a challenge. Is parents are going to have a lot more autonomy to being able to make some of these decisions if they choose to opt out of certain tools.
Yeah, here's another one. Jenna, is there guidance from Lightspeed to inform parents on using their scope act rights? I think that kind of bleeds into the acceptable use policies at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah.
We've seen
I'm sorry, I said that wrong. You're right. Acceptable use.
Yeah. Yeah, if you see some of the things from thought leaders, we're great partners with Grapevine Colville ISD and Kyle Berger, and he's done some phenomenal things on the front end with acceptable use policy and guiding parents into even creating YouTube videos on Parent Portal and how tos. And so there's resources out there. And as a follow up, reach out to myself. We can get you in touch with other districts that have become thought leaders from a Lightspeed perspective, that we leverage some of the things that they've already done that we can copy and paste, so to speak, right? And so let me see, there was another one that just came in. Is there something in Lightspeed that will allow the opt-in, or would we need to create some type of form and send out to parents? Again, and this comes from Andrew. Andrew, I think that acceptable use policy on the front end at the beginning of the school year, and calling out, and this goes back to the spirit of getting the house in order, being able to show the curriculum that is going to be used and reporting out that these apps have been vetted. I think that gets you ahead of the ball, ahead of the curve on potential squeaky wheels or parents asking or enabling their rights for Scope Act. I saw another question that or around, are we going to help parents understand their Scope Act rights? No, that's there's smart people in the districts, and they understand what their rights as parents are. I'm sure you deal with them. There's again, I love the community, but there are in my community as well, there's squeaky parents that and it's almost become politicized in whether you're on the right side of the fence, left side of the fence, or down the middle. It doesn't matter. People care about their children, in it's driving this empowerment from the parents' perspective to be able to have the leverage or right to challenge the district on what their child's being taught. And I think what we've seen, and kind of as industry experts and across the country, it pointing back to, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on politically, it's people care about kids and protecting kids. And that's the spirit of this thing, is that they don't want their kids' data scraped by third-party vendors and sold. And there's a ton of them out there, and we see it day to day. I mean, again, you can be using an application today, unbeknownst to you, in 3 months, they changed their end user license agreement, and they didn't tell you. That's a huge risk to be vulnerable to as a client, right? And so again, we've caught those. We know who those vendors are, and it challenges, and it creates a huge challenge and risk for the district. And to stay on top of that, again, going back to the idea of the legal hours that would have to be applied to constantly review those end user license agreements is unfathomable. And so I'll stop there.
Yeah, and just to get back to your question, Andrew, specifically with Scope Act, it's really more important around apps that collect PII. So those are going to more traditionally be your SIS, your LMS, your curriculum tools that you are as a district are heavily vetting. And those are going to be your paid approved apps that probably have a EULA, a very specific EULA. They're probably going to have a DPA. I put in the chat the SDPC A4L agreement for Texas. Through TEDL, you guys are partnered and you utilize the SDPC agreement. So those paid vendors are going to have very specific agreements that are going to help you be compliant, but you can also attach those agreements in your approved app list for parents to be able to see those, so they can take a read for themselves. And that might, again, lessen the squeaky wheels, like Ryan was saying. But the real impressment here, the most important apps that we want you to stay on top of through Scope Act are those free apps, even those that you approve for the district. So the teacher requests them in classroom and you approve them because they're okay, or they meet your curriculum needs, they look okay from a security perspective. What we're going to see with Scope Act, and we're going to hear a lot more about, I can only guarantee probably by Christmas, within the next 6 months, school's going to start. We're going to see this go into effect on September 1, and then we're going to just kind of hear more and more stories. And so the importance of vetting tools with security in mind is going to be so important. I'm looking at a particular tool to buy, a certain type of application that I want for the students, and I've got X, Y, and Z as my options. Which one is the most safe should be a factor in how you're vetting those. We do provide you lots of information around that with our third-party reviews. My favorite feature in Digital Insight, I feel like it's its claim to fame, but especially for Texas, which is so critical. I mean, I live here. I grew up in Texas, is the ability for in our app usage to be able to see everything in use, but also be able to see which ones have that SDPC agreement in Texas signed, so that if there is an Exhibit E with another district who's down the road from you, or a peer district, you can sign into that, and then that saves you time having to actually execute your own EULA. You can just write into an Exhibit E, and then that will also show within your approved app list for parents looking at that to say, we approved Schoology and we signed this Exhibit E, and here it is. So that's really the most important aspect. I'm having, they did the Scope Act for the last year, is just really making sure that those free apps that you're approving, that you're very judicious about how you approve them. And then, as Ryan has mentioned a million times, which I love, is keeping on track of those policy changes, because those free ones you're probably not getting into an agreement with because you're not purchasing anything. They're probably not signing a specific agreement for you. You're just signing the click-through agreement, and those change frequently.
That's right. That's right. Great point. Great call out, Jenna. Okay, with that, I think we've covered most of the questions in the chat. And if there's, again, anything that anybody wants to see, or we struck a chord and you're like, oh, that sounds really cool, I want to see it in action, feel free to reach out. We can absolutely provide demos, have a deeper conversation around the solutions. We're here to help you. And as trusted partners in K-12, we're headquartered in Austin. Dripping Springs, actually, I don't know if everybody knows that or not, Texas-based company. This is what we're driving to do, is become even deeper trusted partners in help in getting the house in order. And so with that, thank you for your time, thank you for your partnership, and thank you for trusting us with the kids in your district. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Have a great day, everybody.